Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to paint this portrait of my daughter Maizy. I took this photo at camp this summer and I just loved the expression on her face, squinting in the sun laying on the dock, and I thought it would make a beautiful portrait. I'm starting off by sketching on my paper using a color erase pencil, and I'm getting the basic shape of her face. I am just trying to get that kind of heart-shaped face, and then I'm going to also block in the hand. Now I'm drawing right on my watercolor paper, so I want to be careful not to make too many marks because I don't want to have any wear and tear on the paper as we go along. And here I'm just trying to get the shape of her fingers. I realized the hand was a little too short, or the fingers were a bit too short, but I was able to quickly correct that. Now I did a month of drawing hands last year for Inktober. I drew hands every single day and it really helped me get my proportions down, and really it made drawing hands second nature to me. So I highly recommend tackling something that you struggle with when you are looking to grow as an artist. And if you're looking to grow as an artist, a real-time version of this tutorial is up right now in Critique Club, along with 48 long real-time tutorials. So if you've been wanting to improve your skills as an artist, maybe as a New Year's resolution, check it out, because as soon as you're a member for $5 a month, you have access to all 48 tutorials, and I put 2 new ones up every month. And you can also upload your work for a critique from me if you want a little help, or if you get stuck on a painting, you can get some advice from me while you're going along, so you're not kind of learning on your own, which I think is can be really helpful, especially if you're self-taught and you're trying to improve your skills, because it can be kind of hard to self-critique sometimes. Now you can see I'm just kind of getting some of the details in. I skip around a lot when I draw. I don't start at one edge of the paper and keep going. What I like to do is get an overall proportions in, and then I like to get some details in, and once I don't put details in until I'm pretty sure I've got things where I want them. I also turn my drawing around as I'm working, because I find that if there's something that's going to be off, sometimes you can't see it. You're kind of like blind to your own work, and then you take a break and you come back the next day and then it hits you that something is completely off. Well, turning your paper upside down, or turning it around rather, so you're looking at it upside down, can help those things kind of jump out so you can see them. So I find that to be very helpful. Also, I thought this portrait, since the vantage point I didn't take it from, the photo was upside down like that, I thought that would actually make doing a likeness a little easier. And I think it really looks like her, honestly, like when I was finished. You're going to notice there's some real rough patches in this painting. There's some real hot mess stages, and that is completely normal. So when you're painting, do not get discouraged on those first layers when things are looking really rough, because that's how paintings go. We're going to be working in watercolor, and then we're going to layer up some colored pencils. And I'm using my Turner watercolors here. I'm using some yellow ochre, some Naples yellow, a little bit of burnt sienna, some cerulean blue, and some rose red. And that's how I'm mixing all the colors for this painting for the most part. I find using, you need a red, yellow, and blue, I think, when you're going to do skin tone, regardless of the shade of skin you're going for. If you're going for somebody with darker skin, you're going to use more blue, and you're just going to use more concentrated color. I also like to have a burnt sienna in the mix, so that way you can take the ultramarine blue and burnt sienna and really deepen up a color if you need to, but you definitely need those undertones. And when I'm painting fair skin or light skin, I tend to go with more of a rosy undertone, a cool pink. If I was doing darker skin, I would do more of a reddish, like an orangey red, such as a pyrrole scarlet or cadmium red, just to get those richer undertones. So you need primary colors for this. They don't have to be the brightest primary colors. I'm using Naples yellow and yellow ochre. Those are very dull yellows, but you do need that red, yellow, and blue so you can balance them and get the colors you're after. Now, cerulean blue is a very soft blue, and it's got a cool undertone, so I'm using that on a lighter skin tone. If I was doing somebody with a darker skin tone, I'd want ultramarine blue because it is stronger and it's warmer, so it's going to create those skin tones a little bit better. So you want to vary how much water you have in to get the strength of the color, and you also want to make sure your undertones are right so you can really capture the look for your painting. Now you're going to see there's a big shift between wet and dry, so it can be a little scary when you're first putting those colors in on a portrait and they look so dark. But usually when I'm trying to match color in watercolor and I'm happy with it, then it's too light when it dries. If I'm a little scared when I'm painting it and it seems a little messy and a little too crazy, it's usually just about right. Now here I was deciding on the boards on the dock that she was laying on. I didn't like that line kind of cutting across her head, those diagonal lines, but I didn't also like these more vertical lines. I end up wiping those out. But this is a great way to get some wood grain texture when you are doing watercolor, to take an oil painter's fan brush, like a coarse brush. This is a Mimic hog, so you don't have to use a fur hog brush if you don't want to. These Mimics are really nice. And I just pick up the watery paint and drag it over, and that just gives you that wood grain texture. We're going to get rid of that, so don't get too attached to it, but it's a great way to get that texture if you're painting like a fence or side of a house, or something where you need that wood grain. I'm also going in with this brush. It's called a sword liner. You can get a really fine line. You can also kind of drag it on its side and get lots of thin lines, and it holds a lot of paint, so you can really get a lot of color there. Now from time to time I flip my picture. I'm looking at my reference photo on the computer, by the way, so I will just rotate my picture every once in a while on my computer screen and rotate my pad of paper, my block of watercolor paper that I'm working on, so I just get a different perspective, so I don't get too far off. If I start to get kind of off, I'm going to notice it and I'll be able to correct it. So you want to keep it broad until you're sure that you've got things where they need to be. And you may think, well, Lindsay, you're in watercolor, you've already laid down that first layer. How are you going to fix things? There are scrubbing brushes for a reason. You can scrub that pigment back, especially since I used a lot of non-staining colors. Now the rose red, the cool reds generally are staining, so you do have to be careful about that, but the more sedimentary colors, mineral-based colors that I used otherwise are very liftable. Now you can see I'm going in a little crazy with some purples and pinks and tones there to get the undertones. When you've got somebody with really light skin, you are going to see a lot more red undertones, and you're going to see purple undertones because you're going to see the blood under the skin. And also it's summertime, and Maizy tends to burn easily, so we're going to have freckles, and we're going to have rosier cheeks, just because you're going to see those colors on lighter skin tones. So just be aware of what you're really seeing. Now, the opposite is true when you are painting somebody with black skin, dark brown skin, any of those richer tones, you're going to see light highlights. Do not be afraid of the light highlights either. I know it can be kind of, your brain tells you one thing, but the way that light bounces and reflects, and the objects that are around someone are going to affect their skin tone. So pay attention to that when you are doing a portrait. Otherwise, it can be very flat, and you want to capture life in a portrait. You don't want just a flat rendering that looks like a likeness. You want to capture that essence and that life. So really look at those undertones and look at the features. Look at what makes this person unique, and really try to latch onto that, and even exaggerate some areas. If you see like rosy cheeks and you want them to be more lively, you can pump that color up a little bit without it looking cartoony, because it's a painting and you have artistic license. So do that. Now, I am not worried about smoothness at this stage. I'm actually going for a very expressive look. So things being patchy, streaky, blossoms on my paper, I'm not worried about that. Now, the paper I'm using is the Fabriano Artistico paper. That paper has actually the sizing is plant-based. So if you're a vegetarian wanting to avoid paper with gelatin sizing, then this is a good choice because it behaves very well. It's not as hard sized as a gelatin sized paper such as Arches, so lifting up is not as easy. Now you can see I'm lifting up here. I'm just basically painting water over the area I want to get rid of, and then I'm adding in some colors here, and I'm using the rose red and the ultramarine blue, and I'm getting some nice shadows in because I didn't have enough shadows in there, and I'm just obliterating the planks on the dock and also the wood grain. And I didn't like how her arm just kind of went off to the corner of the page. I thought that composition wasn't very good, so I thought I would just kind of let it fade off into the ether. Besides, the photo, the way I took the photo, I don't see much of her arm, so I was really unsure if I had the proportion right there. So having it kind of fade off, I thought helped the composition of the painting, and also dealt with the fact that that I couldn't really see how her arm widened out at that point, at that angle. So it just made all things better to do that. So the brushes I'm using to scrub out, I started off with a Mimic Kolinsky, and the Mimic line of brushes from Jerry's Autorama are all, they're all faux fur. So Mimic Hog is their faux, like oil painting hog brush. Their Mimic Kolinsky is a faux Kolinsky. It's a firmer than the Mimic Squirrel, which is what I usually use. This is the Mimic Kolinsky there, number 16 in size. It's a nice brush. It's a little firmer than the Squirrel. I tend to go for the Squirrel most often, and the Squirrel's actually cheaper too. If you're looking to add a brush or two to your collection, they're all good. Just depends on the feel that you prefer as an artist. I used to like the Mimic Kolinskys better. But now I like the Squirrels more because it holds a lot more water and paint, and I can go a lot further with them. So your preferences can change as you're painting too. So don't be afraid to try a new brush now and then. It will really, you're never too old to try new things. You're never too experienced to try new things, because you might find something that really kind of takes your art to the next level just because you're trying a new product, which is, and I'm not saying like go out and buy everything, because that's overwhelming and that's not going to help you out at all. But I mean, a new brush, a new color, something like that. Just add it to what you're already doing, and that's going to make everything else you have more versatile. Not just buy the same thing from another brand, try something that's a little bit different. Now I have let this layer dry, and now I'm going in with some Derwent Light Fast pencils and some Derwent drawing pencils. And the reason that I wanted to use these is because they don't fade. They're both very light fast ranges. Now there's 24 colors in the Derwent drawing set. I've had this set of pencils probably over 10 years, and the Derwent Light Fasts are pretty new, but I only have a set of 12, and I just knew I wasn't going to have enough in that range to do what I needed to do. But I love the fact that I could rely on those pencils not to fade, because I do plan on framing and hanging this painting. My daughter actually really loved it, and even Lila liked it, her twin sister. They're not identical, they don't look alike, but they both liked it. I thought that was really neat, because you never know when you do someone's portrait, are they going to like it? Maizy keeps asking, when are you going to post this? When's it going up? And of course, the real-time version has been up on Critique Club for days. I wanted to have that up before Christmas in case people had the day off and they wanted to spend some time painting and have something new. So I had that up already, but I only had the 12 set of the Derwent Light Fast because my local big box store had a 12 set. That's the largest they have, and they don't have open stock, so that's what I was limited to. Plus they're so expensive, and I could use a coupon on that set of 12 and bring the price down to a little more of a reasonable price. I think the regular price was like $45 for those 12 pencils, and I think with a coupon it was 27, something like that. So yeah, that's pricey for colored pencils, I think. But I was very curious about them, and I do like the fact that they will last 100 years under proper conditions. So that's nice. I like that. So it gives you a little peace of mind as an artist. And I'm considering picking up the rest of the range. It's just I'm waiting for them to be available and hopefully a little cheaper. But c'est la vie, art supplies. But seriously, you can use whatever you have, and that's what I'm doing. I'm using the Derwent Drawing. The Derwent Drawing pencil set range is very muted, and that's because it's very difficult to get light fast colors that are very vibrant in colored pencil, and that's why that's kind of a big deal to have a light fast range. The Derwent Drawing has been around for a while. Very thick cores. They're kind of like they're a little drier. They almost feel like a Conte crayon, like the little mini pastel Conte crayon sticks, because they're a dry colored pencil, but you can feel the wax in them. They have a little more drag than other pencils, but the color selection is gorgeous, and they last a long time because there's so much, the cores are so thick, there's so much pigment in there. They are a bigger pencil, so if you are more comfortable drawing with a bigger pencil, I mean, they're not like a kid's jumbo pencil, but they are bigger around. Like you need the bigger hole in your pencil sharpener to sharpen them. They're not going to sharpen on the standard one that like your other pencils sharpen on. They're definitely worthwhile, especially if you like to do portraits or wildlife. They just have all those earthy neutral tones. Now, I did have to go into my Prismacolors and get some of those peachy, beigey colors that I just don't have in those ranges, and to get like the brighter kind of like raspberry pink that I needed in the lips, but for the most part I stuck to the light fast ones. Now this is a clear blender marker that is meant for alcohol markers. This is the Blick Studio one, and I really like that because it's very juicy and it tends to blend out the pencils a lot better than other colorless blenders I have. And I use both the brush end And the chisel end for this, I like to use the chisel end if I want to drag a stroke out, like at the hair. You'll see that in a few minutes. But I'll use the brush end if I'm on the skin and I want something to be very smooth and soft. Now that will wear down the marker quicker than using it with like alcohol markers as a blender. Using a colorless blender with your pencils is gonna wear it out a little quicker. But the reason I chose the Blick Studio one for this was because it feeds out the ink pretty quickly, and also I can refill it and I can get replacement nibs if I damage the nib, which it's going to get eventually clogged up with wax. Now you do see that little blotter paper there, that little post-it note thing. It's not a post-it note, it's just a little piece of paper. I wipe my pen off on that to get any of that wax buildup off. It's not going to be perfect. So, if you only have one colorless blender and you use it with your alcohol markers and you're relying on it, I'd probably pick up an extra one to do this technique with. Or, don't use the brush end, because the chisel tips you can clean off pretty well and the bullet tip you can clean off pretty well, but the blender pen is more porous and it will want to grab that wax because it dissolves the wax. That's how those work. They dissolve the wax and they help you blend it around. I find that the brush ones, actually this Blick Studio one, works a lot better than the Prismacolor one that they actually sell to work with markers. It's just still the same colorless blender, but it just doesn't seem to work as well as the Blick Studio one. I don't know if the ink is slightly different. I have a feeling it's just because it feeds out more. You could also use odorless mineral spirits for this, but man, oh man, is this convenient. And the marker is not going to, and also mineral spirits is not going to bother the watercolor layer down below, so you don't have to worry about disrupting anything you've already laid down. And that's another reason I like mixed media, is that these two medias don't see each other. The colored pencil is not going to affect your watercolor, and the alcohol blending solution or the odorless mineral spirits. Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm tripping over my words today. Well, it is it's actually nighttime, Saturday night when I'm recording this, so that you can have it bright and early Sunday morning. So sorry about that. But yeah, those medias don't see each other, so they don't interact with each other or disturb what you've already laid down. So that's what's really nice about mixed media. If I went over the top of this with a water-based media, I could muck up what I have underneath. I could dissolve what I have underneath. And then I'm not going to get so much of a layering effect. And that's what I want, this kind of layering effect, which allows me to lets me to smooth things out. It lets me get complex colors. It lets me get those translucent layers that are in skin, especially in lighter skin. It lets me get that those veils of color and tone. And then, if I want to smooth it out, if I want to blend it in, I can do that with a marker, and it's not going to affect anything else. I really like the bold watercolor that I put down, and I love that I can affect it and make it a little bit more refined as I move along. I don't want to refine it that much because I want this to have a very youthful, carefree look to it, because it was a summer day, and what's more carefree than being, 16 years old in the summer. Actually, I think she was 15 in this picture, but there's nothing more carefree than that, and that's really what I want to get. Now, did you see the gunk on that tip of that marker? I was showing you that so you could just see me scribble it off on the paper there, so you could see how you remove that gunk. Now, also watercolor paper this is a cold press watercolor paper. It's got some texture to it. It's going to wear the brush tips down on your markers faster. So I just want to be completely clear about this, because I don't want you to take your Copic Clear blender and it's the only blender marker you have and you paid $8 for it, and then you're like, Lindsay, I just ruined this on like 2 watercolor paintings. So I don't want that to happen. But I do think it's a good tool if you don't mind having to replace a nib now and again. I would keep it dedicated for colored pencil if you're going to do that, just because you could transfer some of the muck from your colored pencils onto your next marker piece, and I think it would really show up on marker paper being so slick, where you're not going to notice it on your next watercolor paper if there was just a little bit of residue left on the tip. It wouldn't hurt to have an extra and then just keep it with your colored pencil supplies. And I would do that versus just buying an extra nib, because if you're swapping nibs out, you're gonna snap them, and those suckers are expensive. So just get another marker and use it for that. Even a cheapo, you can get a cheapo clear blending marker and use it for that if you want. Now, as I'm going to do details, I will sharpen my pencil with either a little handheld sharpener so I can point it, or with my electric. I think I was using a handheld for this. And I will rotate my pencil as I'm using it so I can keep that sharp edge. So that's a little trick so that you don't have to sharpen so much. And now I'm using a white gel pen just to add a few little sparks of highlight over watercolor areas. These are the Arteza gel pens. I'm not sure if they're in stock right now, but I did get a set of those about a month ago, and they come in 3 different sizes, kind of like the variety pack from Jelly Roll, but I do like this better than the Jelly Roll variety pack. I don't quite like them as much as the Uniball Signo, I don't think, but they're pretty darn close. So definitely a good option if you want to have different line weights. You don't just want that really thick, broad weight, and you want it to be really opaque. These seem to be more opaque than Jelly Roll, just in the few times that I've used them. But there you go. They're not a bad price either. And that pretty much does it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial today. Remember, if you want the real-time version, check out Critique Club. It's $5 a month, and you get access to the 48 tutorials I already have up and 2 new ones every month. And you can upload your work for critique from me if you need a little help, and we can learn together. Thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up before you go. And until next time, happy crafting.